Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage one of Dauphiné 2023. Now, if you guys remember last year's Dauphiné, it was a pretty exciting race. We had a big battle amongst the GC riders, and we had Wout van Aert from Jumbo-Visma going in to try to win a stage, throwing his hands up too early, and then as Davide Gaudu, the FDJ rider, that takes the stage win right underneath the arms there of Wout van Aert. But don't worry, Wout van Aert, the big guy, will get his stage win and be in yellow at last year's Dauphiné. But the big talking point had to be when we came into the last two mountain stages. And it was Jumbo-Visma that were getting pretty isolated down to two guys on the penultimate stage. Then Bahrain Victorious rode the front. Jonas Vingegaard showed he had fantastic form. Primoz Roglic took the race leader's yellow jersey on the penultimate stage with stage wins and just dominating the stage altogether. Then they went into the last stage, and Jonas Vingegaard put on a show on the last summit climb to deliver Primoz Roglic and Jonas Vingegaard, both Jumbo-Visma, 1 and 2 on that stage and 1 and 2 in the general classification. Third place in the general classification last year was Ben O'Connor, and he was way out of it. There was really no fight against first and second Primoz Roglic or Jonas Vingegaard. Now, the big debate, though, after Dauphiné finished last year was who was going to be the leader for the Tour de France, because it was clear to see how good Jonas Vingegaard's form was on this last day of Dauphiné last season. So would he be the leader going into the Tour de France, or would Primoz Roglic, who won the Dauphiné but looked a hair less better on the last day than Jonas Vingegaard, would he be the leader? Well, we saw that happen, and we saw how it played out at last year's Tour de France, and I covered it with part 1, 2, and 3 on Beyond the Coverage, just the videos before today's show starts here at Dauphiné. So if you want to see that, go back and check it out. Today's race, though, what do we got in store? Well, the cameras are going to come on with 65 kilometers. We're going to have 5 riders in the front group, and those riders are Brent Van Moor from Lotto Destiny, Dorian Godon from AG2R, Rune Hedergots from Intermarché, Fabio Vanden Bosch from Albacete, and Donovan Gordin from Arkea Samsic. Those 5 riders got a 3-minute gap on the peloton behind. That's being led by Jumbo-Visma. I was told before the cameras came on that Team Ineos were on the front, and they were riding on the front for Ethan Hayter, who crashed not once but twice and then dropped out on this stage. So that's why we see Jumbo-Visma on the front. But don't fret any, because Jumbo-Visma have Christophe Laporte here. Big question, though, throughout this Dauphiné is whether or not if Jumbo-Visma can dominate like they did in last year's 2022 edition. But remember, there's no Primoz Roglic here. They're all riding for Jonas Vingegaard, and today's stage, most likely for Christophe Laporte. With Jumbo-Visma on the front, they got a little help. You see just behind is Bora Hansgrohe, and that's because Bora Hansgrohe have the same scenario, more or less, not exactly the same as we'll find out at the end of today's stage, but they have a GC rider with Jai Hindley, and they have a sprinter with Sam Bennett. Sam Bennett doesn't climb, though, quite like Christophe Laporte does, but Christophe Laporte doesn't quite sprint like Sam Bennett does, so it kind of washes out depending on what kind of stage you're on. And this is stage 1. Once we get into the final circuits, it's a 23-kilometer circuit that they're going to do basically 3 times, and there's 3 hills on there. Now, they call the one categorized climb as a 1K climb at about 7%, but if you really look at the profile, it's going up. A 2K climb just before that, it's dropping down, it's climbing up, it's windy, it's twisty, and then it'll climb up to the last categorized climb on today's stage at about 11 kilometers, and then you're dropping all the way down into the descent, so it's going to be a twisty, hairy, scary descent all the way into about 2 kilometers to go, and then a little bump going up, and then of course they're back at the lake with a last right turn with about 300 meters to go, and then a chicane into the finish. Now, when they left the ramps, when they left the starting lake here to begin with, they're going to go out and do 1 big loop and then 3 little ones, like I said. And once we get into the racing proper, it's going to start raining. Now, once it starts raining, you see it's coming down in buckets. And the peloton is going to be soaked and dirty by the end of today's stage. Now, once we get going, though, it starts getting about 40 kilometers to go in today's stage 1. This is when we see Jaco Alula get on the front. This was kind of a strange thing, right? They got Dylan Groenewegen, but he's a pure sprinter and doesn't climb at all. Even Sam Bennett might climb a little bit better than Dylan Groenewegen, but they put their rider on the front. Then you look up there at the front of the peloton, you see their rider comes off right away. And Attila Valter, he looks left over his shoulder, and he's giving the Jake Olula rider to look like, why'd you even bother getting on the front? Well, the camera's back up, and there you go. It's Dylan Groenewegen going out the back. He's got a couple teammates with him, and later he'll have 3 teammates to get him through this stage 1 here at Dauphiné, and hopefully he can come back for tomorrow, or most likely stage 3 here, to get a chance for a field sprint if Dylan Groenewegen can find the legs. Now let's get back up in the action, because with Jake Olula pulling on the front, dropping their sprinter, and everyone dropping off the front, we look back at the front of the peloton, it's quick step. Pseudo quick steps on the front, because they're thinking, wow, we got rid of one sprinter back there, Dylan Groenewegen, let's drill it and see if we can get rid of another. Well, throughout the next few kilometers, the pace is fast and hard, and then we're going to see Sam Bennett from Bora Hansgrohe coming out the back. That's 2 of the fastest sprinters here at stage 1 of Dauphiné, leaving the race for any chance of winning today's stage 1 as the pace up front is flying. We go under with one lap to go, 23 kilometers that is. We start seeing the peloton get a little nervous, so we start seeing the first appearance again for Team Ineos, because I was told they were riding earlier at the beginning of this stage 1, but then they stopped after the crash of Ethan Hayter, like I already told you. So with this, we know the peloton's getting nervous, we know it's going full gas, and the climbing's just getting ready to start here again on the final lap here with under 23 kilometers to go. As the final lap starts, it's full gas at the front. You start seeing guys getting popped out the back all over the place, because that's my man, Victor Campenaerts. I haven't seen old Vic for a long time. He's been doing some other races, not ones that I've covered up here on the Butterfly Effect. And the first time I finally get to see Victor Campenaerts again, he's coming out the back here with the last lap to go with about 20K still left in the racing as the Lotto Destiny riders getting dropped. Up front, Jumbo-Visma still drilling it up there with Attila Valters. And then with about just over 17 kilometers to go, Attila Valters has the front guys in sight. Now those front guys are only 3 riders right now, because they dropped Dorian Godon, Arkea Samsic, with 44 kilometers to go. And then Fabian van der Bosch went off 2 kilometers later with 43 kilometers to go. So now you look up front, there's 3 guys in this front group, and Attila Valters has got him in sight. Now his legs are starting to die as he knows he's got the gap down to about 22, 24 seconds up there, and Attila Valters will pull off the front. UAE Emirates will jump on the front, but they're not setting a very fast pace, so Jumbo-Visma will pass UAE Team Emirates and start pulling with Tish Benoot and with Nathan van Hooijdonk. Those 2 riders are setting pace, but you look back, there's only 2 other riders on there. That makes 4 Jumbo-Visma riders total. Now this is a bit of a problem, because we got about 16 kilometers to go. They haven't quite reeled in the 3 breakaway guys up front. You got to remember, Tish Benoot can only pull so long, Van Hooijdonk can only pull so long, but we are nearing the finish of this stage 1. If they can get up to the summit here and wrap this group up, this breakaway group up front, then they can have everything under control. But that doesn't lead any lead out guys back for Christophe Laporte, right? You got 2 guys pulling on the front. You got Jonas Vingegaard there, and Jonas Vingegaard can't do a lead out, and then you got your sprinter, Christophe Laporte. So 4 at this point in time was really only about 3 once you pull Jonas Vingegaard out of the mix there, because he's not going to lead out. Well, they're going hard up the climb. Then with about 15 kilometers to go, one other Jumbo-Visma pops up on the front, and that's Steven Kruijswijk. I don't know where he came from, but it was good timing for Stevie to get on the front. He starts pulling really hard, but when we go up to the breakaway, what was happening about that same time when all the mixtures was happening back there in the peloton, we see that it was Heregaard that put on an acceleration, and this popped out Brent Van Moor from Lotto Destiny with 17 kilometers to go. Now there's 2 riders up front. They're holding the gap back there still to the Jumbo-Visma train, even though Steven Kruijswijk's back there pulling 100%. Attila Valters, who had already been on the front for 20, 30 kilometers in today's stage 1 of Dauphiné, he found his way back up to the front too, and he's trying to do everything he can to help out Jumbo-Visma with 5 guys at the front. But how much strength do they have left? Well, Heregaard up front with 900 meters to go. He looks back. He sees the pelotons right there on his shoulder at about 10 seconds. He does one more acceleration at about 400 or 500 meters to go. He looks back. As he's looking back, he's giving the chicken elbow there to Gordon, who he wants to come through. Gordon doesn't see it because he's looking back worried about getting caught too. And when he looks forward, he's got an expression on his face like, I can't do it, man. He can't take a pull. And then we see one more big acceleration from Heregaard at about 200 meters before the final KOM summit here with 11 kilometers to go. Harrigalt's got himself a gap there on Godon as it goes over the top of the KOM, and they only have about 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds on the peloton, depending on how they're measuring it between the riders. Are they measuring it from the Harrigault up front, or are they measuring it from Godon that's sitting second, about 2, 3 seconds off of Harrigault up front? I don't know, but the gap is close. Now, Steven Kruijswijk fell off the front of the peloton. Attila Valters went to the back of the peloton too. So we're back at the front with Van Hooijdonk pulling and with Thijs Benoot doing everything they can. Sitting third wheel there for Jumbo-Visma. Well, that's last year's Tour de France winner, Jonas Vingegaard, and last year's second place on the general classification. Final stage winner here at Dauphiné, Jonas Vingegaard. Now, we look behind him, Christophe Laporte sitting in fourth spot. Looks like they can get everything wrapped up, right? Well, this gets a little tricky here, right? You're going down a big descent, started at 11 kilometers ago, and it's going to descend, twisty, turny, curvy. You look up front, Harrigault, who's dropped Godon, who can't hold the wheel through the descent and try to find his way back on, because Harrigault's throwing every risk into it as he's going full gas, trying to extend out every second he can. And he's doing a marvelous job. He's getting the gap up there, 10 seconds, 12 seconds, then it goes 13, then it goes 14. He gets the gap up to 15 seconds on Jumbo-Visma. We're chasing full gas with 2 riders behind. But they got problems, right? Jonas Vingegaard, he doesn't want to crash before the Tour de France. And the 2 riders up front, they don't want to crash for the Tour de France because they want to go to the Tour de France too. So these guys got to take a little bit of caution coming down this descent versus up front. Rune Harrigault, the Intermarché rider, he knows this is a chance to win a stage at Dauphiné. He doesn't care about the Tour de France. So he's bombing through all the corners. He almost loses it with about 2.5 kilometers to go. Going into the left bend, the bike slides a little bit. He holds it upright, just barely makes it through the corner. And then you see as he goes up the little rise and it narrows up. You got the hillside on the left of him. On the right, he's got the fencing there with the housing there. He comes down and then into a quick little chicane, and he's going to start climbing with about 1.5 of 2 kilometers to go. Then when we go back to the peloton, going through that same left crazy turn right there, look at the front. That's Van Hooijdonk and Benoot there going straight through the painted lines. But look just over to the right there, that's Jonas Vingegaard. He's like, I'm getting ready for the Tour de France, guys. I won the Tour de France last year. I'm not taking the white painted lines for nothing, and especially not for a stage win here at stage 1 at Dauphiné. So he avoids the white line. Christophe Laporte, though, he knows he needs all his speed and legs he can have to finish off today's work from Jumbo-Visma if he wants to win the stage. So he shoots straight through the white paint. All 4 Jumbo-Visma riders come out in front, but then all of a sudden, 1.5 kilometers to go, Thijs Benoot's blowing. He pulls off the front. That means Van Hooijdonk's the last real lead-out guy left. Van Hooijdonk does about 200-300 meters on the front. Now we're 1.1 kilometers to go, and Jonas Vingegaard, last year's Tour de France champion, he's on the front trying to help Christophe Laporte win stage 1 here of Dauphiné. Up front, Rune Harrigault is doing a solid job up front of holding off the peloton. The gap's at about 8, 9, 10 seconds. Every time he's looking back, I'm just yelling on the Chesterfield, don't look back, man, just punch it. He's going with everything he can as he comes in near the lake. The road starts twisting some more. You look behind, it's about 400 meters to go. Jonas Vingegaard's on the front. He's got about 4 seconds to make up on Harrigault, who's still flying at the front with 400 meters left. Then we go back to look what's happening with Jonas Vingegaard. Well, he's getting swarmed, right? You see the Albacete de Koenig rider on the right. That's Robert Stannard. You see on the left side, that's Julian Alaphilippe. They'll come together. Julian Alaphilippe will bump with Jonas Vingegaard. And then look how he's got the Frenchman Christophe Laporte blocked in back there. Well, you see Jonas Vingegaard look left over at Alaphilippe. You see Alaphilippe look right. And then he looks a little bit more back, and I think he realizes that that's his countryman, Christophe Laporte. Even though he rides for a different team, he just blocked him in. So what does Julian Alaphilippe do? Well, he moves to the left. When he moves hard to the left, he takes his teammate with him, and that's a no-no right there. He did a big mistake. I'm sure his teammate thought he was going to go more into the right and just pull the whole group over, and he could just kind of pass by on the left. But once Alaphilippe moved over left there on his teammate, that took his teammate out now because his teammate's got to go all the way around. And more importantly, it opened up the door for Christophe Laporte to shoot up the middle. But just while that was happening on the right side, it was Robert Stannard, Alpecin de Koenig, who started his sprint to try to make up that 3-second gap to Herregault, who's up front. Herregault's looking back over his shoulder at 150 meters to go. We back the film up just a little bit more to about 250. Alpecin de Koenig is on the front. Robert Stannard sitting second on his wheel is none other than Matteo Trentin. Remember when I told you guys the last 3 videos I just covered on Beyond the Coverage, I talked about how important that Matteo Trentin is at the finish of all these chaotic finishes. And this is what I'm talking about, what we missed, what Tadej Pogačar missed at last year's Tour de France through stages 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8, 9, and 10, and all the way to the finish of the Tour de France with no Matteo Trentin. But he's sitting second right now on Alpecin de Koenig, Robert Stannard's wheel. Third, sitting there, of course, is Christophe Laporte, who made a very easy exit after Julian Alaphilippe took his teammate hard left. Well, when they're coming down to the finish and they're getting into the chicane, up front, Herregault's looking back over his shoulder, still too much. I'm yelling some more. Stop looking back. Just go, man. Go. Look at the peloton hot on his heels. 200 meters to go. Matteo Trentin starts his sprint. He goes straight past the Alpecin de Koenig rider, and then Christophe Laporte starts his sprint at 125. Catches Herregault at 50 meters to go, has him passed like he's flying by at 150 miles an hour. By 30 meters to go, Christophe Laporte sitting up, celebrating, crossing the line, roaring as he crosses the line to celebrate stage 1 victory here at Dauphiné, and he'll get the race leader's yellow jersey for winning the stage victory. Now behind in second, well, Matteo Trentin, UAE Team Emirates, who jumped 200 meters out. He gets second. Third on the stage, Herregault Intermarché, who held it all the way till 50 meters to go when he got passed by Christophe Laporte, will round out the podium here for third place on today's stage 1. Now, there's about 43 guys finished in the front group here. All the GC favorites seem to be in there from what I caught, with the exception of one guy, right? Movistar's Enric Mas lost 15 seconds crossing the line with his teammate just in front of him, going 44th and 45th on today's stage. I don't know exactly where he lost his time. Guys, I spent a lot of time after the race finished trying to figure out what happened to Enric Mas. Where did you go? Every time I back up the camera and I see Enric Mas, he's sitting in pretty decent spot. Not perfect, but he's about 20th. Perfect, of course, is like the Visma spot where you have Movistar all lined up on the front of the peloton going down the descent looking after Enric Mas. That was perfect, but if you can't be there, if you can't be where UAE Team Emirates were on the Jumbo-Visma train going down the descent, then 20th really isn't so bad of a spot, so I never saw where he lost time. But Enric Mas gave up 15 seconds at the end of stage 1, which could be a big hit when we're talking about racing for the general classification later, because who wants to make up time on Jonas Vingegaard, who won last year's Tour de France and won the Basque Country this year already too, so we know he's on good form, as Jonas Vingegaard always is. Now, can he repeat here what Jumbo-Visma did last year with Primož Roglič winning? Well, we're going to have to wait and see, and it's the big mountain stages that start the last two days here at Dauphiné. Third day's a little bit hilly too, but the last 2 days are super mountainous. So Jumbo-Visma have to keep everything under control all the way from now, because they're wearing the race leader's jersey with Christophe Laporte, all the way into the last few stages to try to be able to win Dauphiné here with Jonas Vingegaard, and then go into the Tour de France on Jaime Morel. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Stage 2 looks like it could be another stage for the breakaway, putting in some efforts. Stage 3 looks more like a sprinter stage, but maybe tomorrow's stage could be a sprint stage 2. But certainly once we get after the individual time trial and into the mountain stages, it is a big-time battle amongst the GC favorites here to see who can win the 2023 edition of the Dauphiné. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys real soon.